Hello and welcome to Awaken Your Human Design. My name is Moni. This is my co-host Danny, and we got some transits for you today. Here we can see on our mandala wheel, we have the Sun in gate 36, which is the gate of crisis. And then we have the Earth in gate 6, which is the gate of friction. And they're both solar plexus gates.
Yeah, two solar plex gates, and they're also in our nodes right now, right? So, so we're sort of getting it double. This one will move a little bit quicker, obviously, over 6 days, but it's going to be good going into what is this crisis? You know, this gate sort of gets a weird name sometimes, and I can't wait to get into it.
Yeah, and Saturn's going to be like dipping into it in a couple days as well, and that's going to be going through most of the year. So get used to this
Keeping
36
that
energy.
channel alive.
So here we have the Sun in gate 36, which is the darkening of the light or the gate of crisis. And it's the rule of cycles in which decline is a natural but not an enduring stage. Gate 36 is a solar plexus gate, and it's part of collective circuitry. So think sharing as our keynote, and it's part of the sensing circuit specifically. Gate 36 lines up with gate 35, which is the gate of progress, and the channel 3635 is the channel of transitoriness. And so gate 36 has fears of vulnerability and inexperience, both emotional and sexual, that are resolved and transformed into experience where you create and meet challenges of change and growth through emotional crisis, emotional clarity over time, and learning to handle the crisis. It has a hope to pain wave driving the human experience towards change.
So the first and second lines of this gate are humility and creativity. But what's so important here is by design, this is what's going on with this gate. By design, progress cannot exist in a vacuum. It needs friction. It needs to expand. It needs to get out. Progress doesn't exist alone, and it must be shared. So this gate of crisis is a great gate of inexperience. It is designed to make us emotionally nervous, but the nervousness not in such a way that we're supposed to dwell on it. Or when we were younger, we were elated with it. You know, it was exciting. And that's where it's really supposed to get. But as we get conditioned, this is so profoundly a down type of nervousness. And the nervousness, it's basically got its voice in the 35, but if it could speak, it would say, I'm inexperienced. I don't know what it's going to be like. And every time I get there, I'm never happy enough because as soon as I get there, it's this decline, the cycle of decline. The rise is not enduring. The decline is not enduring. Neither one is enduring. And when we were kids, we would just go up and down naturally. When we weren't excited, then we weren't. When we were, then we were. And as we got older, we started turning that into a problem. And so, you know, this is a week when people could really choose to check in and say, what am I not so experienced about? And or what is it I wish I had done? This is so much like the 51. It would like to leap into something. It's just that this one wants to share it. And it's part of a manifesting process. So it moves a lot of things. It's also the cross of Eden, right? And
Mhm.
so, you know, Eden itself, stepping out into the world is what Eden says, and it's a big deal because if you realize where you were a moment earlier, before you stepped out into the world, you were in Eden. There was no problem. There was no rent due, you know, or anything. No bills to pay. Nothing. Food. No, it was all there. So. This is about that transition, and 36 is nervous about what's going to happen next. What's it all going to mean? And the older it gets, and these two basic first and second lines have a heading above it. One is the ability to accept rejection, because that's this gate's fear. It's a fear of rejection, um, and the other one is an inadequacy. This is actually fear of inadequacy more than rejection. And the other one is lack of inspiration, which stops progress. It's a process that you learn that a lack of inspiration becomes a process that won't endure. And then the great, enraging, enriching inspiration that has the experience. This gate wants to experience things, everything. So you can imagine what that entails in the human experience with the human body. And so and then suddenly it starts to go up on its wave, and that at some point won't endure and will decline. And so it's about getting used to how that process makes us so dang intelligent over time. And the big surrender comes with letting it go. There's a powerful being. They keep getting clear. They experience many, many things. They're a fountain of wisdom because of that, and they can deal. That's where this gate is supposed to be.
Gate 36 is an interesting one. The desire to experience something also shows up as a feeling of boredom.
Very much so. Very much so. Boredom would be a big part of this. Other adjectives too that you maybe could think of.
Ennui.
That, well, just that fit that whole notion. Antsy, restless. The Restless Hearts. If that was ever a soap opera back in the 70s, it would have been about this gate. You know, maybe a couple others too, but this one for sure.
Recognizing that even when there is a decline, that it's not going to last forever. Like that transitory nature of it. Like that's an important thing, because sometimes it's like 36, it's crisis, it's the darkening of the light. There's all this like crazy stuff going on, especially right now. It's in the node. So there's lots of crazy stuff going on in the world, and recognizing this is just part of the process. This is just part of the cycles. It's the rule of cycles in which decline is a natural but not an enduring stage. Like it's got to get a little funny before you can make it through and find our way to the other side, to the vessel of love with gate 25.
Right. So part of this decline in surrender is setting us up to be the vessel, right? After you've been on the cross by this, the vessel becomes easy in a way, right? Because 36 definitely nails you to a cross. The decline itself declines. The rule of cycles declining, you have to look at it that way. So the decline declines as well. It does not endure. All of it it's this constant, whatever the stage is, it won't endure, it will move. And it's your job to recognize, I'm in a vehicle that keeps going up, and my price for going up is I have to take a break when it comes back down. And it endures. This whole process endures. It's guaranteed. So if you could know that, just like you could know anything else, suddenly it makes it so much easier. Suddenly things don't matter as much. I'm a big proponent of, we humans, we don't want things to matter that much. Most things we wish didn't matter. Most things that matter is what I'm trying to say, or that are a problem, we just wish weren't. We're so ready to be done with it, all of that.
While you're speaking, it kind of reminded me of when you're on a roller coaster, because you're saying you're going up, up, up. And we've been like riding these gates, and you go up, 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 and you get all these experiences. And then you're going up, up, up. And then that point where it's going to dip you down, and that moment of shock and crisis, and like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, what's going on? And I mean, that is a decline. And it can be really surprising, and it can be an absolute crisis as you've been like clicking your way up, and then you're going down. And you might scream, and you might lift your hands up and do all the fun roller coaster stuff. And you make it through all those twists and turns and the crises and the declines and everything. And you make it to the end of the ride, and you're like, wow, that was a lot of fun. I kind of feel like gate 36 has that energy.
It very much is that energy. It can't wait. What it wants to be more than anything is the rest of the experience in 35, the completion of it. It wants that, and that's part of its nervousness. How does that work? What's going to happen to me? The gate starts out in a process of a first, second, and third line, lower trigram, and look where it's leading. I mean, we already know where it's leading. What the gods
those whom the gods wish to destroy, they first make mad or insane.
They first drive crazy or make mad, right? Make crazy or drive mad. Yeah. So if the foundation doesn't set up and you allow yourself to be carried away, then the roller coaster ride loses its meaning, and you will go mad, because it's not supposed to lose its meaning. It's supposed to give you that juice, and then now you've been there and you've done that.
And then you tell the story.
And you tell the story. It's designed to ultimately, say sort of what happened, explain that. It goes straight to the throat. A lot of turmoil here, but it doesn't have to be. And we'll explain more of that as we get through, I guess, the next gate.
Yeah. All right. So next up, we have the Earth in gate 6, which is conflict, or the gate of friction. And this is the fundamental component of progress, which is the law that growth cannot exist without friction. Gate 6 is a solar plexus gate, part of tribal circuitry. So think support as our keynote, and it's part of the defense circuit specifically. Gate 6 hooks up with gate 59, which is dispersion, and the 59-6 make up the channel of mating. Gate 6 generates all three modes of emotional awareness: feelings, moods, and sensitivity. And it's designed to create friction, and it produces a heat essential for growth and fertility. And even stepping into another's aura creates friction. And if and when the conflict is resolved and resonance is reached, then there's an opening and intimacy can proceed. And gate 6 acts as a diaphragm that's open to intimacy or not, and then it closes off to the 59.
Yeah, that friction is just such a great word. They called it conflict, and I almost prefer friction, but it is both
Yeah.
because it's so emotional, because it's the coveted gate in a way. It's not, no one knows they covet gate 6 because it's almost not very sexy. It's not part of one of the other streams of awareness, but it is coveted in the sense that it carries all the other waves with it. It is the genesis of the solar plex firing up, and that's a generated channel. I mean, that requires a generator. So, when you get to the 59, obviously, so this thing having the friction to let something through and the friction to not is this desperately needed component because we're not monkeys in the tree anymore. We don't need to just procreate endlessly. And that procreation isn't just about making more babies, which it's mainly about, but it's very much about, but it's about all the things we make. Look at making a baby like making a baby business, making a baby new friendship, having new baby ideas that we do something with or share with someone or empower someone with or support someone about and all of that. It has all of that. It's such a big part of the tribal process in its supportiveness, but it fires up both. So it's got aspects of, let me share my friction with you. You know, let's talk about friction intimately, like in the individual circuitry, and let's share it, in the collective. So this gate feels like a conflict because as the pH, if the pH isn't right, the two things don't fit. And so here's the gateway into the solar plex. It's coveted because the solar plex represents the pleasure principle, all the good food. It represents the experience of feeling with others. It represents falling in love and how that always feels so deep inside of us. That's here. So much of its meaning is here. Sweaty palms, that's here. A jittery first kiss, that's here. Should I do this thing in a business or this or that? That's all here. So if it doesn't give its energy, the other can easily feel put off, and it feels like a conflict. Why all the friction ultimately? So that's why this gate, both of them in the solar plex center, especially with the nodes in the 36 and the 6 right now, this is just going to be a turbulent time. I would tell anyone who's a news junkie, get out of what you normally watch and watch something else and just see if you notice the difference, just as an experiment. And it doesn't even matter what it is or whatever it is you do, look around in the world because this is guiding itself to be shared. It's guiding itself to be expressed. It's emotionally clear and or turbulent and not clear. And either way, it's expressing that. So this is a great week of expression. Let it express. Start talking, everyone. Start talking. You know, hey, something's wrong or something feels nervousy or there's a conflict and you're a little nervous about what you do about it and da 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 da. Start talking. That's gate 6 to really deal with it is stop closing off the intimacy. Start talking. So this would be a time for that.
It's interesting too, because gate 6 is currently in the south nodes, and it makes sense with 59 and 6 because 59 is that tribal intimacy. It's dispersion. It's, coming in on your space, coming in on the territory, coming in on your body. And it makes sense because 6 is also it's about borders. It's about boundaries. And do I let you in or not? And if you come up in my space and I don't want you there, there's going to be a conflict.
Right.
And I find we're in this time of a lot of reasserting of boundaries and reasserting of borders. And if you have weak boundaries, you're going to get an infection. Something's going to make its way through with that 59 trying to spread and disperse things. And so it's just very interesting understanding that and that idea that growth cannot exist without friction. I mean, even the act of making more people, there's a lot of friction in that in a lot of different ways. Even thinking of a seed in the ground, it's like you need to have the soil around it, you need to have that friction, you need to have the water that's like, surrounding it, almost like
The seed
drowning
won't
it.
germinate in the air. It's got to have something pressing against it. In
Exactly.
fact, we don't even feel loved by our loved one until we're pressing against them. You
Hmm.
know,
I need to I
now
need to hug you and touch you.
right? And parents to children and friends to each other, stuff like that. Teammates, you
Hmm.
that they're grinding into each other, right? During practice.
Hmm.
That's open to this. And it's interesting to note this is a great time I keep predicting this for us, becoming emotionally aware that we go through a process that makes us clear, that clarity has power, and becoming aware of that. I think we're cracking that nut in this particular nodal cycle, and this is only helping. The first two lines of both of them start out with an introduction. That means this whole beginning, the whole thing that starts out here is about a life process, a process that they learn to experience as they live out their life. They don't hit the ground running with it like there was um, if there no beginning to it, no header to it. And the first one is the realization that wasting one's resources against overwhelming odds is not courage, it's folly. In the second line, the gorilla recognizes that the ability to maximize an inferior position through timely withdrawal and then re-engagement and interaction. So it's both of these are a process. Let me go through the natural process of the second line, foundational part, binary, making making this process be timely and selective, and choose that which can pull you out. And the first line is saying, hey, let's study that. We're looking at that. What is emotionalness? What is conflict? That's what the second line's asking. What am I open and closed to? And it's always realizing, oh, I like to be open, and then suddenly, oh no, overwhelming forces on the other side, folly, and gains the wisdom to get out, even if it looks really attractive. That's an experience, a mate, all the things that could look really attractive. That brand new car, you know, a wedding ring, say I do. All these things can look very attractive, and this thing it grows a life process, becoming emotionally clear to say a timely expression of that, and the recognition that if I get in over my head, it's time to bounce, time to go, time to back out. And I mean, that's an awareness. That's, again, it's not a mental process. Let me go through pros and cons. Should we stay or go? It could be very much a splenic process sometimes, but that's so quick. It doesn't have the depth. That's survival first. This is juicy. It wants to experience all of it. And so you put these two together, and this is what Eden would require if we were going. In fact, I think this is the cross that God punished them and said, hey, you got this cross now? Okay, bounce. You're out of here. You got too many desires going on. You got all this friction baby making. You're too articulate in gate 12 and you're talking back to me, and you got a lot of crazy ideas. You ate from that tree. You said some stuff. You're wondering who taught you the difference between right and wrong in the first place. Who taught you there's such a thing as bad? You know, I mean, basically, that's what Adam and Eve got kicked out for, right? Didn't God say, hey, who told you about good and evil?
Yeah, it's the distortion of
Yeah, because
you're not allowed to twist reality. That's like ultimately the lesson behind the Garden of Eden in the fall is you're not allowed to twist reality. Adam and Eve were given the rules. These are the rules of this universe. You can eat from anything, don't eat from this. And then how easy it is to be fooled by someone, telling you something else. Doesn't this apple look nice? Doesn't look pleasing to the eye? Why wouldn't you? Why wouldn't you eat that? No, don't trust that. He doesn't know what he's talking about. God, what does he know?
By the way, where are your clothes? Where are your clothes, right?
Yeah, and pointing at these things and the
Yeah,
deceptiveness and how easily evil can be so, it can seem so good, it can be so tempting. And then the punishment being Adam and Eve are not allowed to twist and contort the rules of reality and the nature of the universe,
right.
even if it looks tempting, and then being kicked out.
Yep. And if you do, you get crisis and conflict. And you better have some manifesting juice to cut through what needs to be said. You better have the right idea, because otherwise it's crisis and conflict again.
You can ignore reality, but you cannot ignore the effects of ignoring reality. Because if you ignore reality too long, there's going to be a crisis, there's going to be a conflict, and you are going to be shockingly kicked out of the paradise world.
It's a metaphor. That's what it is. And so, yeah, this cross earns its name, and it brings us incredible wisdom. You know, it's all about teaching, right? Teaching about what the heck just happened and what was it all about, right? 'Cause it's got 11 and 12 there. So
Neat. So Incarnation Crosses for this week. First up, we have the right angle cross of Eden, which adds gates 11 and 12 into the mix. And these are inexperienced people looking for excitement or new experience who eventually embody wisdom and grace through loss of innocence. Then
loss of innocence. I love that.
yeah, being kicked out of the Garden of Eden, this loss
Yeah,
of innocence, and realizing
period.
that they're naked and unclothed, and there's shame. Then we move on to the juxtaposition cross of crisis, which adds gates 10 and 15. And these are people with a love for themselves and humanity who are best studying the crisis behaviors of others, thus elevating experience or sexuality even to a higher plane. And then finally, we'll move on to the left angle cross of the plane, which also adds gates 10 and 15. And these are witnesses of the mundane plane who see the vagaries of humanity, like the good, the bad, and the ugly, yet have the potential to show us that there is something more. There's light, spirit, awakening, and enlightenment.
Yeah, this cross movement, it's so funny because right as we get to the end of this and all of these vagaries, because in the very beginning, you know, loss of innocence, it seems like a crisis. And well, and it frankly, it sort of is,
Mhm.
right? Um, and then the crisis manager shows up, right, to be fixed and say, we'll get it. Don't worry, I'm looking into this, and I'm going to apply a rhythm, and I got good behavior, and I've got a good love of things, and we're moving into the vessel of love. So don't worry, it's coming, it's coming. And the plane says, yeah, maybe it's not so much coming, but we're going to get there anyways. Through the mundane and the vagaries, this is a real acceptance. Left angle cross, transpersonal cross. It's very much about the acceptance of all of this. And then when we get into, you know, next week's, it's just so beautiful what it moves into. So this literally sets up the coming of this. And when we get to 25, it's I won't forecast anymore. It's just so cool. 25 is basically Jesus on earth, essentially.
Mhm.
And so that's what these are doing. They're setting up this amazing movement to move through the experience. And by the way, this is very practical. We got our vocation here. We got a vocational education in this cross. We figured out how to make stuff and build a few things because we had to. We figured out how to basically kill a few things because we got to eat stuff and grow a few things. You know, we got a lot of dirt under our fingernails in this cross making it work. And so much practical stuff. No, of course it has to be taught. And of course, we have to be jack of all trades, like the 36 would demand in that whole channel when it has it, and so forth. And of course, we need to be discerning about what we let in to our body and what we let in generally, you know, at a gut level, even above and beyond the discernment of like 49, for instance, discerning what to allow to approach. This is even more guttural than that. And it's just like an on off Shazam. At least you can flirt with the 49. It's not so much a flirt with this, it works or it doesn't. And when the keys are open, this whole cross opens up the entire emotional experience. And it's just so fitting that we move into gate 25 next week after this.
Perfect. So the hexagrams for this week, we have the sun in gate 36, which is this gate of crisis. And the hexagrams are earth over fire. And in my I Ching book, it reads hexagram 36, brightness hidden. Instead of the darkening of the light, it's
Hidden.
brightness hidden. Yeah, that's real interesting. So the image reads, brightness enters the earth's center, brightness hidden. A noble one overseeing the crowd uses both dark and bright. Light enters the earth's center at night. The sun will rise again in the morning. The darkness is simply part of a natural cycle. The noble one understands and uses it as such, light balanced with darkness, insight with acceptance. There's no need to let the full glare of your insight shine forth all the time, or to force your understanding on those who might not want it.
Wow, the same discernment that was at the beginning of both of these, really. I like how they mentioned that the balance between the two, because since the decline is not enduring, but it is steadfast, this is just talking about the balance between light and dark, which would be the balance between the up and the down of the emotional clarity process.
And it's also funny because this is right before the spring equinox next week with the 25. So this is literally like the sun. It's been dark. Oh no, it's a crisis. Will the sun rise again? And it's like the sun will rise again. It's okay. Just give it a minute.
It will absolutely, yeah. No matter what the groundhog says, neither, yeah, it will come.
Cool. All right. So the Earth in Gate 6, which is friction, and it's heaven over water. And in the I Ching book, it reads hexagram 6, arguing. Or just right to the point. It's just fighting. And the image reads, heaven joins with stream, contradictory movements, arguing. A noble one starting work plans beginnings. Water flows downhill away from heaven. Your inner momentum diverges from the immutable laws pulled away by the flow of emotion. You're in dispute with how it is. The dissenting impulse inspires you to start work and take action. Arguing makes for much better beginnings than endings. In order to direct the inner momentum intelligently without worsening the conflict, a noble one thinks of heaven joining with the stream. He plans from the outset how to bring the emotional currents of commitment back into accord with absolute principles.
That's really interesting, how the mention of how arguing is easier at the beginning than at the end.
Yeah, it's really easy to start a fight. It's not so great when you're
To
at the ending
argue all the way
point.
at the end of it, right? You're
Yeah.
supposed to have, so that's a clarity process. At the end of it, we're really not supposed to be fighting. So the clarity says, we relent. And I just find that amazing how in the beginning it cuts to the chase, and then as an emotional process along the way, it goes through a process. What was closed may not always stay closed. That pH is not guaranteed to be in any one place that we can say it's going to be. It has its own intelligence. I mean, maximally, it's got its own intelligence. It's in the solar plex center. It's waking up in our lifetime. So, I mean, think of how profound that is. Hello, people. Your solar plex center is waking up in our lifetime. Moni, you and I are living out the whole oncoming of this. It's been here for a while, but it's the knowledge showed up. The 100th monkey syndrome is happening. This baby is coming, is waking up, and the phoenix cometh. So, Shazam.
Fantastic. So, what do we have to tell our audience? What can they look forward to? What can they kind of play around with? What can they expect this week?
Wherever you thought there was a crisis, go there and talk to them, start talking. And if you don't want to, definitely don't, and find out what happens, right? If you don't want to, just find out what that's like and find out your urge to want to share with them what it was you wanted to say. And wherever things are going really good, keep talking. This is a shared process. Only through our communing together. This is a time where we figured it out. We just got kicked out of Eden, but it's now several thousand years later. I'm pretty sure we can figure out, how to take care of ourselves at this point and how to commune and just get along. This is the time we're supposed to figure that out. This crisis is the crisis of we haven't figured it out yet, but it's there, like the Michelangelo block inside the block of marble, right? The statue's there. Michelangelo would say, you just got to chip away the pieces, Um, a rather modest way of putting that, and it's true. So that means all the statues are inside the blocks of marble. One contains the other, and this contains that, is the point. So we should literally get to other people, start talking, let it be shared, find out what's really out there for you, and find out what things need to come to a cyclical end. Let that be something in your life that you're actually looking at, so you can feel it through. Is this something I want to look at? You only got a week, so that's not a lot of time for a process like this, but it's in the nodes, so you got more time than you think.
Nice. Yeah, I was just going to say, it can be maybe a bit challenging this week. So be gentle with yourselves and be gentle with other people. be careful driving. I'm always like extra aware with like the 6 and the 36 and some
Yeah.
of the more, you know, edgy kind of gates. People might be a little on edge. People might be a little more confrontational, a bit more conflict and more arguing.
Passive aggressiveness too.
Yeah, a lot of passive aggressiveness
Yeah.
for sure. And like be mindful of your boundaries. You know, fences make good neighbors. You know, respect yourself and your boundaries, respect other people and their boundaries. You know, like Danny said, communicate. This can be a lot of kind of energy, but can also be a place where you're like, hey, I can feel this energy. Do we want to maybe talk this out and come to a resolution after some conflict and make it through the crisis?
What an offer after some conflict. Start using that language. Yeah, it's a little conflictual. Let's go through the conflict. Make it to de-accentuate it, in other words. Right? Think of all some of the crazy things some people say that it's like that it's okay to say now because they kept repeating it over and over again. This wouldn't even rise to that occasion, but start using the language.
Yeah, and the only way out is through. I kind of have
Yep.
that kind of vibe as well.
Yeah, absolutely. The
And like,
best way out is going to be through.
yeah, and you can't enjoy getting through the roller coaster if you don't first make it all the way up, and then you have that like, oh no point. I feel like the 36, they're like, oh no, I can't get out of this, and I'm about to go crashing down. But then it's like a whole fun ride, and you get through the end of it, and you're like, wow, we went through that, and it was great.
Well, your strategy and authority is going to tell you so much right now, you know, at a time like this, because the roller coaster ride also doesn't work unless you stay absolutely present with it. If you go looking for what you think you want to anticipate out of it, well, you're going to miss it. Like with everything in that abstract, you know, collective circuitry. I like to lean into things, find out what's in your life. Maybe it's a difference between being almost 60. It's because as I get older in life, it's like, yeah, you know, lean in, get that over with, rip that off. You know, it's it's funny.
Be gentle, be, you know, allow yourself some grace, allow others some grace, be careful with it, and see what conflicts you can make it through and hopefully come to a good resolution point. See what crises you can make it through to get through that. You know, decline is a natural but not an enduring stage. You know, see what happens when you make it through to the other side of the crisis.
And staying in it is the way to actually get the part that's always going up, because that's going to happen. And to get the part as it goes up, to recognize that will not endure either, and it's not supposed to. So, yeah,
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much, Danny. Thank you to our audience and our viewers, and we'll catch you next week for some more transits.
awesome. Take it easy, everyone. Enjoy this week.